Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got another Bible review for you today. This one is an iron spottis wood authorized King James Version. Now, this particular model is the Ruby, and it is a fairly small edition. As you can tell by the size comparisons here, it is fairly diminutive in size. Also, this one has definitely seen better days. The cover is very well worn. Now, I don't believe that this Bible was heavily used, only because the book block itself is in great condition. So it might have just been stored on somebody's shelf. I would imagine maybe sitting up. I don't even know. I would imagine it was stored on somebody's shelf only because the pages are heavily oxidized and this leather is pretty well worn. It might have been maybe left in the sun or something like that because it almost looks like chewed up, the leather. So go ahead and take a look. We'll get started. You can see this beautiful, nice, genuine leather cover here. That beautiful grain. It's a very nice deep grain. You can see Holy Bible has been imprinted into the front. And it does have a nice perimeter line there, an outer perimeter line and an inner perimeter line. Very nice indeed. It is a full yap. It does close up here, which is interesting. You don't see very many of these in vintage Bibles. You see them on occasion, but they're certainly rarer than, regular yap or no yap Bibles. We'll take a look here at the spine. You have the perimeter lines that continue. Holy Bible's imprinted, and then down there at the bottom all you have is London. There are some spine rib indications here, and it is kind of interesting to note that they're like a double tooled line, but they're not raised. They're just kind of pressed into the side there and kind of burnished, so they are a little bit shiny. I do like when they're burnished like that. The shininess of the ribs makes a nice contrast between the kind of the dullness of the regular leather there. Take a look at the back. You can see that nice deep leather grain again, and the perimeter lines continuing. Now, like I said, this one is pretty worn, so the corners are definitely chewed up here. You can see all the wear there all around. There's some tears in the leather and that sort of thing. I don't have a great way, or I don't even know of a way to really repair this. So if anybody has any ideas or input or anything like that, please feel free to chime in down below. I would love to know. I'm usually pretty brave when it comes to working on Bibles. So as long as it's nothing too crazy, I'd be happy to kind of attempt to try and repair these tears. Otherwise, this one will probably make a pretty good rebind candidate. So go ahead and crack it open here. You can see the corner work. I'll show it to you guys. And it is kind of a black paper paste down here. You can see it's torn right on the edge there. It doesn't look like there's any sort of reinforcing material or anything like that. So this is what you can expect to happen if your Bible does not have that reinforcing tape. It'll just start to tear across the edge there. And one of the corners here has begun to kind of pop up. I'll have to glue that down. On the back, you see the corner work there as well. It appears to have been some kind of a sticker there at some point, but it's long gone. And this paper is kind of a matte paper. It's a nice finish. There is something from this era called Beetle paper. Maybe I'll float a picture of it somewhere here, but it's kind of like almost like a crushed velvet paper. I don't know how to explain it. It's a really weird paper. This isn't quite that, but it's pretty close in its texture. It's definitely like a very matte finish. But it's a nice paper overall. So take a look at the book block. There are whatchamacallit. There are white head and tail bands, and they've been preserved pretty well. And you can see this wonderful and beautiful, luxurious, all air quotes around all that ribbon here. It is threadbare to say the least. Let me see if I can get the camera to show it, but it is kind of see-through almost. It is very very well worn, and it's just thin and it's narrow and it's flimsy. So again, if anybody complains about their ribbons, say on their crossways or something like that, I would default you to Exhibit A here. Just take a look at what they used to be. Ribbons have certainly come quite a ways over the years. So take a look at this nice beautiful gold gilt. Look at that, amazing, spectacular, very well done on that. Very nice. And on the bottom here, you can see that there is a kind of a concave book block there. Whoop! A nice little C that it forms. Very nice in the construction, and that'll help bring the text up out of the gutter. It kind of elevates the spine. And I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't think I am, other than as I mentioned, just the red under gold art gilt that we'll see here when we open it in a second. So let's go ahead and take a look at the biblical text. So on the very first page, there's no blank pages or anything. There's no spare cardstock pages. It just gets right to the title page. Take a look there. And you do see at the bottom that it is a Ruby 24 MO. Now, the way that it works with the page sizes is the higher the number, the smaller the page, and the smaller the number, the larger the page. So like an 8 VO is an octavo, and that's a pretty good size Bible, like a 6x9, or if not a little bit bigger. The Ruby is one of the smaller ones. I think that there's one size smaller. I think it's a 32 MO. And as far as like bigger, I think there is like a 4 MO, which is called a quarto, which is very, very large size. It's kind of like lectern Bibles, kind of the big pulpit Bibles that you would see. So just something to note there. Then we have the epistle dedicatory, and you can see how incredibly tiny that font is. I will definitely get you guys some some measurements on the font, but like look how big my fingernail is in comparison to these lines of text. Oh, it's small. I don't know. They were infatuated with smaller Bibles back then. That's all I can say. Then you have your table of contents here after the epistle dedicatory, and it gets right into the Bible. And we have the first book of Moses called Genesis. So we'll take a look there at the biblical text. It's very nice. Very small, but very nice. We'll turn the page. You can see there's a chapter summary. So we have our layout here. You can see the page numbers in the bottom center. You have the book name and the chapters up in the top center. And then you have the running headers, one for each column, which is interesting. And I kind of appreciate that because typically over a one-page span, the Bible moves pretty quickly in some areas. So it's nice to just kind of have kind of a running header for each column. And then again, we do have that summary. I'll show you real close. I don't know if you guys will be able to read it, but there's the summary for chapter 2. And you do have double line drop caps, which is nice. I always appreciate that. I think they look very nice. Now, otherwise, there's no cross-references, there's no footnotes, nothing like that. Just the summaries are about it. So, and you can see how yellow this paper is. Let me get a piece of paper for reference here. You can see kind of how much it's yellowed. Let's go ahead and flip through it, and we'll get to the poetic sections. Now, here you can see that the book blocks, there's a little bit of separation here between the signatures, and that tends to happen. If you notice here with the construction, the leather cover is actually glued directly to the book block. Normally nowadays you leave it kind of gapped so you don't end up, with the book block directly on the cover, or you can even put in like an Oxford hollow, which is where they put like a little hard piece of material to kind of help the spine kind of bump up and leave that opening kind of open. But back then for some reason they didn't, and this tended to happen. You get quite a lot of those kind of separations here among the text. Now, obviously, it is a double column verse by verse format, so we're not going to see much difference here. We can just work with Proverbs. That'll work. But it is a double column verse by verse format, so it'll be kind of that way throughout. We'll get a look real close here at the text. Now, you can see how opaque that paper is. There's absolutely no show through. Show through just doesn't exist. I always joke around because I say that ghosting and show through must have been invented in the 1960s, because in these older Bibles you don't see them. You don't see it at all. So, and I know that part of it is the paper that was used at this time was much higher quality. And I guess the process, from what I've heard, the process to create like India paper, was full of like carcinogens, so it caused cancer. So they stopped producing it, which good. I don't want anybody getting cancer, especially not for a Bible. So it makes sense, but it's just interesting to see how how incredibly thin this paper is, and yet it's so very opaque. We'll take a look here at the New Testament title page. Very nicely done. And then we have the Gospel according to Matthew. We'll turn a couple pages in. You can see that it is a black letter text. So let's go ahead and get to the end. And there are some helps in the back of this one, some kind of interesting things, especially considering the fact that it's a ruby size, so it is pretty small. There we go. I turned right to it. There we go. So we have the end of the Bible right there at Revelation. There's a little bit more printing information there. And then you have the Psalms of David in meter, which is interesting. If you guys have never read the Psalms of David in meter, I would suggest it. It's a pretty cool experience. I'll show you a few of them here. We'll turn to Psalm 23 in a second. But essentially what it is the Psalms, but written much more poetic. So the lines are kind of written to rhyme, just to make it like easier to read, I guess. But it's definitely a unique experience. So let's go to Psalm 23, and you guys can take a look here. I'm not going to read it because I will fumble through it like a maniac, but at least you guys can see it for yourselves. Hopefully. This text is large enough, which it might not be. Here we have the end of the Psalms. And then we have translations and paraphrases in verse. So there you are. Kind of an interesting thing there. You can see Genesis 1, right, and 2, and it looks like it's almost a shorthand. Let heaven arise, let earth appear, said the Almighty Lord. The heaven arose, the earth appeared at his creating word. So I would imagine this is just going to be some like more popular text selections from the Bible, and then they're also written in meter, it sounds like. Very interesting. I love these sorts of things. And this might have just been like a way to help you kind of memorize the little bits and pieces of the text there. Now it does look like there's a small run of hymns. So this would be the end of the paraphrases. Then you turn the page and you have a few hymns here. I'll show you guys. You want to pause and read them. Interesting, right? Have a few hymns thrown in the back of the Bible there. And then you have passages of scripture paraphrased. This would just be the list of all those paraphrase passages there. So you know specifically which ones are paraphrased. And we'll turn a few pages. Oh, you got one map here. I thought it was blank. That's how good that paper is. You can't even tell there's anything on the other side of it. We have one map printed. Do we have any more? Let's see. Yep, there's another one. It's kind of weird that they're on the reverse side, right? You can see the overcast stitching here. This is a really nice example of overcast stitching. You can see that really well. So you can see this kind of exterior stitch line here. That's overcast stitching. And they put that there to basically help preserve help strengthen the book block. It's pretty interesting how they do that. I find that it might help to prevent the first couple pages tearing away from the book block. But inevitably what happens is the first signature just tears away from the book block, funny enough. And these maps are just printed on the normal Bible paper, but they are pretty rough. Actually, let me show you this map real quick so you guys can get a feel for it. They're pretty rough in the sense that like it's a nice print. It's very well printed, very nicely printed. But there's just a lot going on because they kind of have all the cross hatching there on the topography. So it makes it a little hard to read the words. I would imagine if these were very large maps, they'd probably be very nice maps, very nice looking maps and very easy to read. And that's it. You have the end of the Bible there. So let me get you some measurements. I don't really have anything to compare it to, only because this is such a small edition. The only thing I would really have are like maybe like another ruby. So I don't really have anything like good to compare it to. Maybe a pit minion. I might grab that in a second, just so you guys can get like a feel for the size. But let's get a measurement here. And with the cover opened, it is 6 5/8 of an inch tall. It's about 4 1/8 inch wide. And then it's about 1 1/4 inch thick. So not too shabby there. And you can see some of the leather cover here is flaking off. It's in poor shape. You know, I have a certain like routine that I go through with my vintage Bibles. I clean them and I apply a few chemical preservatives to it just to kind of help out the leather. But every once in a while you get a Bible that's, in just such rough condition, there's not really much you can do to it. I still kind of go through the rigmarole of preserving the leather as best I can. But once it's leather's kind of weird in the sense that like it's very hard to bring it back. It's a lot easier to just preserve it from the get-go. So once it gets to this state, it's not like you can really like reinvigorate it. You know what I mean? You can kind of do your best and kind of preserve it where it's at, but you're never going to like bring it back to new. So just an aside, let's take a look at the text size here. Oh, nice and easy thanks to that break in the spine there. All right, and this is going to be small. We'll use the Be and Behold here. And you can see again how yellow that paper is, how oxidized it is with age. Oh, goodness, it's small. It's looks to be about a 6-point capital in comparison to Times New Roman. And let's see if we can find an M. And mountains right there. We'll go to 6-point again. It's a little bit bigger. It's about a 6.5 point on the lowercase. So about a 6.5 point text, which is very diminutive. If you guys have never read a 6.5 point text, it is challenging. So if you guys are looking for a pocket Bible, I could definitely recommend a Ruby. That would be a great fit. They do pop up on eBay pretty regularly. Ruby was one of those editions that was made by like many people, and Iron Spottiswoode was one of those producers that produced Bibles for many publishers. So I think there's like an Oxford Ruby, a Cambridge Ruby. Allan, I think, still makes rubies. They've been all over the place. Rubies have been all over the place just because I would imagine they were a popular model back in the day. So just something interesting to note. Bible buddies, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, if you're curious to know anything else about this Bible, please feel free to leave it down below. Otherwise, if you could please like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, it would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, Bible buddies, bye.